work session for the Norfolk City Council will now commence. Mr. Clanton will be participating remotely in today's meeting. The clerk will read a resolution approving the remote participation of Councilman Clanton.
A resolution approving participation through electronic communication means by Councilman Carlos J. Clanton in the Norfolk City Council meeting on December 9, 2025, from a remote location, international waters, Freeport, Bahamas, due to a personal matter being approved. This is Doyle.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee. Aye. Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Speaker. Aye. Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. Mr. Roberts, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. At this time, I'd like to take a few moments and provide an overview of the proposed agenda for this afternoon's work session meeting. In the first presentation, which is titled Transatlantic Air Service Regional Fund, Jared Chalk, Chief Business Development Officer with the Hampton Roads Alliance, will be providing an overview of a proposed funding strategy which has been brought forward by the regional business community in support of air service. That presentation will be followed by a discussion on NRHA, Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority's request for private activity multifamily bonds. That presentation will be provided by Steve Morales, Vice President of Development with the Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority. Following that, we'll have a brief presentation by Adam Melita, Chief Deputy City Attorney, who will discuss an update on admissions tax and how that is outlined in City Code. Following that, we'll have the standard city planning update from Mr. Tahan, Director of Planning. We also have one item for consideration of a closed session motion. So without objections or amendments to the agenda, I would like to call up Mr. Chalk with the Hampton Roads Alliance.
Without objection, but before Mr. Chalk comes, I do want to welcome two students from Blair Middle School, Yasmin and Nora, here watching their local government in action. Please welcome Yasmin and Nora. Thank you for being here. Mr. Chalk.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city manager. It's an honor to be here tonight. It's glad to be back in Norfolk after a couple-year hiatus here at this podium. So again, as the city manager mentioned, here to talk about the Norfolk Airport and some opportunities that are in front of us. And I'll just tell you, as you all know this, right? This council has been instrumental in leading a lot of efforts in the economic development and tourism space, whether it's the cruise ships or some of the redevelopment projects here, but it's really put the airport on a trajectory for growth with 45 nonstop destinations now and more to come. I will tell you from the Hampton Roads Alliance, and we just rolled out a couple weeks ago what we're calling the DEAL framework, and this is really understanding our regional position, understanding our position in the world, and leaning into those strengths. And I'll tell you, so if you look at the U.S. in general, right, we are remilitarizing, we're reshoring, and we're reindustrializing and providing for energy security in a much different way than we have in the past. And all of those things really align with Hampton Roads and with Norfolk. And so, as the home to the world's largest naval base, NATO's headquarters in North America, that demand that we see around the world, we think is going to continue and be really leveraged into some of the assets here in Hampton Roads. So again, global events are reshaping the world. NATO is investing heavily in the U.S., and a lot of that, I'd say, deal flow from an economic development perspective, we believe is coming here. And so, with all this growth at the airport and this increased demand, the business community has now said, when is that next step? When is that transatlantic flight? And so, here with Nancy Gurdon, with the Hampton Roads Business Roundtable, and the business community approached her and her organization and said, how can we, help? How can we help support this growth into the region? And so this is a business-driven effort, first and foremost, and what it would be is the creation of a Hampton Roads Transatlantic Air Service Fund. I will tell you that I think this is one tool in the toolbox. Obviously the city council here, with being the host community of the airport, and actually owning the airport, and has a lot of levers it can pull to help, again, additional support for for air operations and air service. You know, a lot of that's tied to marketing demand. You know, the assets that you're doing, things like MacArthur Center, military circle redevelopments will also, again, drive demand this way. So, again, this is a revenue mechanism. The Alliance's role, so why I'm here, is just to serve as the fiscal agent. So, you know, we share offices with the Business Roundtable, and they look to us as an entity that can, you know, if they were to raise money in coalition from the business community, we would serve as a fiscal agent to that funding. So administrative, we don't do any lobbying, we don't do anything like that. This is just focused on international service. So I guess with that, I'll keep it brief. Thank you for your time tonight, and look forward to any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Char about the fund? Yes, Ms. Doyle?
So Sharon or Nancy, who is it you're going to be asking to fund this fund that you're proposing?
I'll kick that to Nancy with questions.
If I can follow up, thank you. I'm Nancy Gurdon. I serve as President and CEO of the Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable. We really are a regional group. We are represented by CEOs. They are CEOs that are companies that are domiciled here in the region, as well as companies maybe that have an international presence in a major North American. And so that's really our group. A lot of what we do is we look around the country. How do we make Hampton Roads really competitive with other regions? That's a lot of what we do, and work very closely with the Alliance. And so to that end, a lot of what we would do on this coalition and fund is think about, number one, where can we actually get the funding from private sources and others? So we're actually doing some of that early work right now, yes.
And will you be asking any localities for funding as well to support this effort?
This is all TBD. I think the first step is what Jared was describing earlier. You know, from a process standpoint, the very first thing we needed to do was, number one, show that there's business community support in the region. And by having both of our organizations, the Roundtable and the Alliance, that's step number one. Step number two is then putting together the coalition and the resolution that we have an intention to do this. So that's really where we are at this point. Yeah.
And then will this in any way upend or change the governance of Norfolk International Airport?
That's the intention is not to do any of that. The intention is to try to support getting transatlantic flights here into the region. That's simple. Yeah, that's really what our mission is now.
Let me ask you more directly. The resolution does not include any change or suggested change, which you couldn't do anyway, but you don't, that's not in your,
Right.
that's not in your framework or your.
Not at all. Not at all, no. It's purely, we have to get started somewhere. And the first step again is to show business community support for this whole information, because we would be obviously one of the big users of transatlantic service. So that's
Okay, so let me just, since you opened that door, you get started somewhere. How I read this is a transatlantic service regional fund. So it's very specific. So that's the start and end of what you're asking us to consider. To vote to establish a fund.
Yeah, exactly. So the Business Roundtable would like to establish the fund. Obviously, we would lead the Alliance and seek the city's guidance, but it's just to establish the fund, to go have these conversations with airlines. You've got to sort of say, hey, the business community supports this effort. And so some regions, frankly, can't even get the business community to come together to make this ask. So this would just be to establish a fund. That's it.
There's no other proposed amendments. The resolution, what was shared, is the only document that's in the works that you know of.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Nancy or Jared? Well, thank you both for what you do.
welcome.
Really appreciate you coming to share. All right. Mr. Roberts?
Thank you, sir. I'll ask Steve Morales to take the lectern. Again, this presentation deals with NRHA's request for private activity multifamily bonds.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Stevens. I'm the Chief Housing and Real Estate Officer at NRHA. I'm joined here with Steve Morales. He's the Vice President of Real Estate. So we're here to present two bonds. One is Broad Creek Phase 1, and the other one is the Tidewater Gardens that you're familiar with. Broad Creek, the developer is the Community Builders, affectionately known as TCB. We are co-developer and owners with them. you see there, the architect, the general contractor, relocation, and other entities that are part of the project team. Project summary, there are 64 units that are going to be project-based through the rental assistance demonstration program. 88 units in total, so 64 will be RAD, 9 will be market, and the rest will be LIHTC. There's going to be full interior renovations, wood trim, windows, roofing, no off-site relocation. It's going to be more of a checkerboard, or some residents will move in place. NRHA will hold a long-term ground lease with it, and requesting up to $9 million of multifamily bonds. This is just a site map of the different phases. There are 3 phases. Importantly, you've got phase 1, looking at completion in 2027, phase 2 and completion in 2028, phase 3 also in 28. The different renovations will be the site work, repair of cracked roads, streets, sidewalks, asphalt, things like that. Architectural exterior renovations would be some waterproofing installation, roof shingles, exterior wood trim railings, handrails, etc. Interior, again, is going to be painting, new kitchen cabinets, garbage disposal, new appliances, repair and fireproofing. Units will be painted throughout. All shower sinks and fixtures will be replaced. New toilets as needed. Replace all appliances, including refrigerators, ranges, hoods, dishwashers, and microwaves. Flooring, new flooring throughout. Some will be LVT. In the bedrooms, you'll have carpet. For the mechanicals, the HVAC system will be replaced. Water heaters currently are more than 5 years old, so the useful life is wearing out. Lighting fixtures will be all new LED. Replace all plumbing fixtures and accessories. So this is just a summary chart of residents' rights to return. So the tenant will pay 30% of their household income. That's the same with public housing. And RAD, it's a flat rent that will increase over 3 years. The initial eligibility is 80% of AMI or less. Existing PH residents, regardless of income, they're allowed in. Right to return, both get that. Tenant screening is not applicable to public housing residents, and there's no rescreening upon conversion. Monthly choice mobility is not applicable for public housing. And the tenant, the folks who are going with tenant vouchers, after 12 months, they can get or request a tenant voucher. So resident council, tenant service funds, grievance procedures and eviction protections, and lease renewals are all applicable to both residents, public housing and RAD. So this is just a schedule. So we're here today, December 25. Final NRHA action is going to take place somewhere around February 2026. Closing of the financing in June of 26. Renovations to begin shortly after and completed in 2027. Kindred, phase 2, B2. Tidewater Garden. Developer is Renshaw. You're very familiar with this project, so I won't spend too much time on it. This is phase B2, named Kindred Apartments. It's 101 units. Unit mix, 47 replacement units, 33 affordable units, and 21 market units. total TDC is approximately $51 billion. And here you see the site map for Tidewater Gardens. And the proposed schedule, project schedule. So we have the action here now, December 2025, perhaps January 26th if we can get it in. Final action is in April of 26. Closing of financing is in May of 26. Construction begins in June of 26. And construction completion is December 2028. I went through that really fast because I know we're short of time and I was told to keep it concise and tight. So I hope I did that.
You did just fine. Yes, Mr. Page.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is a little bit off topic. I know it's a lot out in the media and outside about what's going on in Calvert Square as to the heat not working. Do you guys have any update as to what's going on with that?
Sure. I have with me also Brenda Fleming. She's the VP of Property Management. As chief, I also oversee property management, client services, rental assistance, and real estate. One of the things that we did was, first goal is resident focus. So initially, we offered tenants to move into the hotel, so we offered the hotel stay. Currently now, we're offering to transfer them to another site on the property. We are also giving rent concessions, and we're also offering hotel stays. So it's the extended stay hotels. So if they want to go to a hotel, they can. If they want to move or transfer to another unit, they can. We're also offering the rent concessions.
And you guys have been putting space heaters in
Yes.
places that
Yeah, that was the first
could receive it.
space heaters to every single unit that was down.
Do we know when the work will be completed out there that's causing this?
Don't right now.
That's okay, you weren't prepared for this,
Well-
but you can get this to me after.
Okay, I
Send
can
me an
get
email.
that to you.
And how many units are still without heat?
Okay, currently there's 18 units still without heat.
Okay.
And the issue is that it's on a boiler system and it has a subsurface piping that goes to all the properties. It's that subsurface piping that we're having trouble with. It's very old and, as you can imagine, rusty. And so it's what's giving out and leaking. And so when we start to repair it, we find that we think the leak is here, but then the leak ends up down here, then it ends up down here. So we're trenching out, and unfortunately, we've had terrible weather. So Friday, we got rained out. Yesterday, we got rain and snow. So we're having some issues, but we're looking at both temporary and permanent options to replace that piping and also to replace the system valve that moves all the water. So there's 3 current pipes. There's piping for the boiler and there's domestic water piping. And we're changing all that valve work out.
Thank you. Corey Brooks has been tremendous in helping us.
Mr.
Mr.
Mishko.
On the 47 replacement units, do you know if those are project-based or Section 8?
Those are
They'll be
project-based.
project-based,
Yeah.
and it's project-based Section 8, it's the two together.
Aren't they two different things? If they're,
The project-based is, it means project-based Section 8. So instead of the voucher being a tenant voucher, where the resident can take that.
it's the project, it's
on
not,
the
it's
actual
not
unit.
transferable.
Correct.
So these are going to be public housing permanently.
They are not public housing, they're under the they're under the Section 8 program.
Are we
So
talking
they're on,
about
they're on
the-
section 9. They're on section 9.
And Bernard, is this for which bond project?
The phase B2 of Kindred, the 47 replacement units.
So one of the core things as part of Kindred in the redevelopment of Tidewater Gardens was we're not rebuilding public housing. And so any of the replacement units are part of a mixed income community, and those were under the Section 8 program.
You have some reservation
Oh,
for tonight?
no, that was the information, or thank you.
Okay, all right. Any additional questions for Mr. Morales
I
or?
do.
Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you for coming in. Next, one of the things that I've requested in the past is the last minute request by NRHA. You are fully aware of the projects that you're planning to have done. But you continue to bring to the council at the last minute asking for approval for your projects. I cannot support that because it's been requested of you over and over again not to do that. It's very important that and I cannot speak for my colleagues, but it's very important for me to be able to study exactly what you're asking for and to collaborate with my council members as well as my city manager, my mayor, and my legal counsel. Also, what you're asking to do now for Broad Creek, where I live, Mr. Morales, you've been knowing me for years now. And you should know that this is not one of my expectations. As a matter of fact, during the pandemic, NRHA and Tidewater Builders,
TCB, the community builders.
yes. We had several meetings. I took the lead in doing the subcommittee meetings to get the information to bring back to NRHA so that we could clearly be on the same page as far as the expectations were for Broad Creek. And you stand before me tonight disrespecting the work that I've done for Broad Creek and for this same project that you're asking me to approve. And I do have all of the documentation of the small work groups that we have. You have not gone to the community for their input. That doesn't happen in Broad Creek. It's not gonna happen in Ward 3. I wanna know your master plan for the relocation, although you say you're not going to relocate the citizens, the residents of Broad Creek. I want a master plan. I asked that the last time. And I don't understand what checkerboard means. So if you could get back with me on what checkerboard means, I don't know what that means. Also, you gave a clear layout of what your deadline is, but again, it's always last minute requests coming to the city council. I wanna know about a ground lease. What does that mean? What is the rent and how often? You talked about the rent increases. Well, one thing that we've noticed when there's renovations going on within a year or so, the residents' rents increase. So I want to know the timeline. I also, in your previous discussions with the city council, you continue to hear me talk about washers and dryers. Why is it that during the renovations, we're still having residents to pay to wash and dry their clothes? And I want to see the materials and the window replacements of the housing in Broad Creek, because the windows are awful, the lighting is not good. And yes, I have taken Team Norfolk over there to completely view the site, and yes, I do have a problem with your management system. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have any questions related to the multifamily bond request that's before us? Thank you both for coming. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. The next presentation is just an admissions tax code update. Adam Melita, Chief Deputy City Attorney, will provide that report.
members of City Council. I'm just going to spend a few minutes giving you a heads up about some small adjustments to the admissions tax program that we are contemplating in order to resolve some questions that have arisen about the scope of the tax. Just a quick history, the admissions tax in Norfolk dates from 1946. At that time, it was, quote, 1 cent for every 10 cents. So I think my math is correct. It's a 10% tax. It's a 10% tax today. It hasn't changed since 1946. At that time, it was enacted each year and revised from time to time. Finally, it was codified when the city adopted the 1979 city code, the city code that we have today that we are using and amending from time to time. So it's right there spelled out in city code, but it's essentially the same 10% tax that we've had since 1946. Like the food and beverage tax and the lodging tax, it is an excise tax. It's a tax paid by the consumer. So for the admissions tax, the person who buys the ticket holder, is the taxpayer, and the seller of the ticket is essentially collecting the tax on behalf of the city and then holding it in trust until they remit it to the treasurer. And those remittances are due monthly, and they're due on the 20th of the month after the month in which the ticket was sold. With the rise of the reseller services and reseller apps in the last 10 to 15 years, we decided we needed to clean up the admissions tax language. We first did this with the lodging tax. We were seeing with short-term rentals and the advent of Airbnb and Expedia Group that those online intermediaries that were arranging the connection between the buyer and the seller and then facilitating the transaction, managing the funds, those were the people that were in the best position to be levying and attaching the tax and then collecting it and remitting it to us. And so we saw the development first or most extensively in the lodging tax, and with some enabling legislation from the Commonwealth, we amended our lodging tax in order to make sure that those intermediaries would be collecting our lodging tax and remitting it. So then we turned our attention to the admissions tax. The same sort of intermediary activity, mostly online, is occurring there. You have the reseller apps, StubHub, SeatGeek, and there are even online ticketing agents like Eventbrite who are now providing some of these services, and they're operating in that cloud economy. And so they are in the best position when they're identifying the buyer and the seller or the reseller of a ticket to capture that tax. So we set about doing that cleanup the same way we did with the lodging tax. And this council approved that in December of last year, and those changes went live on January 1st of 2025. So with that cleanup, we did a few other things. We clarified exactly how the service charge exemption would work. We dropped some of the antiquated language that was a holdover from 1946, like vaudeville performances and something called Leap the Dips, which I had to look up. Leap the Dips is apparently the trade name of the oldest wooden roller coaster in the world. It's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. If you're in Altoona anytime soon, you might want to check it out. So we removed tickets for Leap the Dips as well, and we modernized some of the language and cleaned up some redundancies that were there. Following that cleanup during the course of 2025, the Commissioner of the Revenue staff began implementing the cleaned up, tighter version of the admissions tax, and they started to hear from some taxpayers who didn't realize that they were covered by the tax, or they didn't exactly understand what their obligations were under the tax. The language was a bit clearer. The Commissioner's office was telling them what they needed to do and what their obligations were, and that started a bit of a discussion as to whether in just revising and cleaning up the tax, whether we had it targeted and functioning the way it ought to be. And so over several months, we've looked at it, and we've agreed that some of the issues raised probably do merit some more simplification. And so we set about doing that. So we now have available, it's not on your agenda tonight, but it is available and can be docketed when the management is ready or at the council's pleasure, a new revision to the admissions tax that addresses some of the simplifications that have been asked for. The proposal would tighten up the definition of place of amusement to make it clearer for people to understand whether the location where they're having their event is the location where the tax applies or not. We can clarify that participation in special ticketed sporting events is not taxable. So if you're a participant in the fun run or in the charity golf game, you are not obligated to pay the tax. You are not one of the excise tax payers. That can and probably should be clarified. And then we think there is still some confusion about the service charge. Well, we've nailed down what portion of a tax, what portion of a ticket sale is not taxable as a service charge and what portion is. There still seems to be some confusion about that, and we've made another cut at making that cleaner in this revision. So we've worked with the Commissioner of Revenue staff. It took some back and forth. We now, they have represented to me that they understand that this simplification will be manageable for them. It may make enforcement, should make enforcement and collection easier for them. They are now prepared to adjust their assessment work to match these revisions. They are requesting a delayed effectiveness date, so something like January 1, 2026 or March 1, 2026, so that as they work with some of the taxpayers who've been asking and have been confused, they can go ahead and say, look, we've got this version. We can tell you exactly what you have to do or what you don't have to do, but those are all simplifications that we have available and we'll bring to you at your discretion. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Smeagol.
I know that there was a new law in Virginia dealing with service fees, and I just want to make sure, I was just reading about it the other day. When there's a service fee charged on a ticket for like a credit card or something like that, it's supposed to only be for a credit card, not for debit cards on that, and the fee is supposed to only cover what the credit card company charges. I don't know if this has anything, you said service fees, so I just want to make sure. And there's also some limitations on service fees and what can be charged with that. So I just read about this only because a lot of restaurants now are starting to charge a service fee if you use your card and not pay cash, but a lot of them are overcharging because they're just putting a blanket amount that you have to pay $1.25, but that might not be the percentage, and it's only supposed to be for credit cards, not for debit cards. So I'm going to challenge it the next time I eat at a restaurant and they tell me I have to pay, but I just want to make sure that that part's worked out. And I know we've discussed before about admissions taxes at high school and middle school sporting events and not charging a tax because the money goes back to the schools. I know it's a user tax, but it causes the ticket price to increase, and then it hurts the school systems, the athletics bottom line, because they're not getting as many people when you charge that much. So I don't know if that is being addressed in this or not.
To your first point, I will look for the state statute and make sure that that is consistent with the revisions we're looking at to make sure we're not capturing something in the admission charge definition that the state does not allow us to capture. So I'll check on that. The exemption for the high school events, and I think it's all public school events, was in the old version. I think we had amended it to add it to the old version. We preserved it in the cleanup. We may have actually tightened it up a little bit. It appears that it's working just fine. Nobody seems to be confused about that one. That one seems to, we got that one right. So that one is unchanged in this latest round.
Because I know we had fixed it a couple years ago, yeah.
That was changed at your initiative, and I think you said this, Adam, but it may bear repeating. These revisions do not result in any new admission, in the application of the admissions tax to any new areas.
Correct, yeah. I didn't say it clearly enough. I should have. No, these are clarifications of which you adopted and went into effect January 1st of this year. But for the people who need to pay the tax and the people who are trying to explain the tax, we do think that we can be clear and not have to interpret some of these terms with this latest round.
My final question is about, so if I go on Ticketmaster, I was just looking at the Magicians show, and if there's a reselling of a ticket, Commissioner of the Revenue's office is making sure, because it's through Ticketmaster, which is the agent that the city of Norfolk has hired to sell tickets, is charging the appropriate taxes for any resale of tickets. That's all.
Correct. Every seller and reseller would be required, if they are selling tickets to a place of amusement, they are doing it exactly the same way. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle.
So Adam, I spoke with the Commissioner of the Revenue yesterday, and I think this will also go a long way, help me clarify for businesses that host, put on running events. You mentioned fun runs, that's related to the school stuff, but for instance, if I do a 5K or a 10K around town, it's my understanding that this clarification will help with those people who are doing that kind of work, and so everybody's on the same level playing field.
Correct. Yes, the participants, there's a question right now as to whether the person who's buying a ticket to be entitled to participate in that event owes the tax or not. This clarification will make it clear that those participants who want to sign up are not subject to the admissions tax.
And if I could, when these are socialized, let's just make sure that we broadly communicate this, because I think there are some entities that still will claim that they don't know the change and may not be doing what they should be doing. So I just want to make sure that everybody's doing what is required by this admissions tax.
I'll speak with our communications and with the commissioner about what they believe is the best way to do that.
Mr. McGee.
I just want to thank you, Adam, for the work you put in to get us to this point. It's been quite a number of months of back and forth to try to work this out, and I believe what you've got proposed is very responsive to the concerns that I've heard, and I'd love to see this on a docket soon and implemented as quickly as possible in cooperation with the Commissioner of the Revenue.
Mr. Belita.
Thank you.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll invite up to the lectern Bobby Tahan, Planning Director, who will provide your planning update.
Thank you, Mr. Manager and Mayor. Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I have the planning update to provide for you for items that went to the Planning Commission in November. And one item which will be on your agenda tonight, which many of you have been briefed on already. The first item is a zoning text amendment to allow for the usage of houseboats. Just to clarify, a houseboat is different than a liveaboard for those that utilize marinas. A houseboat is when a boat or other vessels used primarily as a residence and not as transportation. Currently, those are not permitted in the city, and this text amendment would allow those uses at legal conforming marinas by right or by conditional use permit, depending on certain criteria. Liveaboards are boats that are lived on by or resided on by the owner of the boat at the marina, and this currently is permitted at marinas. They are not permitted to rent them out to other people. Interesting enough, both of those are permitted and regulated by the health department in order to ensure that they have all the proper safety precautions in place, including pump outs and other things for people to stay aboard each of those residences. The proposed text amendment would allow for conforming marinas to be allowed to provide both long and short-term stays on houseboats. The conditional use permit for those would be required if a marina does not comply with one of the following regulations or performance standards that we provided here. The houseboat is, the current regulations would allow it by right if the houseboat is owned and operated exclusively by the operator of the marina provides no fewer than 50 slips. No more than 5% of the boat slips are occupied by houseboats and available for such rental. And a marina employee capable of assisting the persons renting shall be on site throughout the rental period. These are the standard performance standards that we have proposed in this use. However, if someone does not meet one of those requirements, they could potentially apply for a conditional use permit to explain why their proposed use and how they operate would still meet the intent of these regulations. Here's a location of all the marinas throughout the city. You can see there's the number of slips that are provided for each. Again, The numbers that we came to depended on the, which marinas had actual pump-out stations and which ones did not and had certain permits with the health department. Staff collaborated with the health department to understand their inspection procedures and which ones that they have under permit already. By a 7-0 vote, the Planning Commission does recommend approval. The majority of conforming marinas are located in commercial districts, and it requires similar protections that are required for hotels and motels. The next item was a request from the City Council to amend the allowance to apply for a conditional use permit if a application was previously denied. Currently now, if someone applies for a rezoning and they are denied, they are prohibited from submitting a substantially similar application within 1 year of that application. That same prohibition does not exist for conditional use permits. This amendment would provide that same prohibition for that application if the application is substantially similar to the previous one. Please note that for conditional use permits, it could be very simple for someone to change how they operate and change significant portions of that application, although generally it would be the same ask. They could have different operational characteristics that could get them out of the prohibition from being able to apply within 1 year. Planning Commission recommends this by a 7-0 vote. The next item is at 5802 East Virginia Beach Boulevard. This is America's Best Wings within the Janus Shopping Center. This is a request to allow the existing restaurant to operate with extended hours. This location will not serve alcohol. The applicant is essentially requesting to operate from 9 a.m. to 6 a.m., which most of us would probably say is 24 hours, to provide their services for the community. By a 7-0 vote, the Planning Commission does recommend approval. It is located within a shopping center with no direct residential exposure, and this is being supported by the Lake Taylor Civic League.
That very similar to the two Shell gas stations that asked for changes for the car wash, and we held them up. I hope you'll have an answer tonight. I think they were back on the agenda about if they're going to make improvements. Has anybody had discussions with Wheeler Management about the way Janus Shopping Center looks and the maintenance of their property?
We have throughout other major conditional use permit applications and other redevelopments that they've done, similar to the Goodwill where they had to add landscape islands and other things as part of their improvements. For most of these regular tenant build-outs, we don't, recently the Planning Commission has not requested or required significant improvements for these.
And I'm not saying, I think it's just an opportunity to have a conversation with them about concerns about the way that it looks. Janus, they've made some improvements with resurfacing some of the lots. Some of the roads in there need to be resurfaced. There's potholes and things. But it really is the landscaping and the trash that they're not maintaining, particularly right in front of where this is going. There's some retention ponds that are just full of trash and debris. It's just these shopping centers and not being team players in the city of Norfolk and keeping our city looking good. Just whatever opportunities we ever have, if we have them at the table or a representative from the management companies to let them know our concerns, I think we just need to start doing that more if we can.
Yes, sir.
Or send in the JP and Carlos.
Yeah, actually, they've been looking pretty good. When's the last time you were over there?
I go there, I shop at BJ's probably 3 or 4 times a week up there for my school.
BJ's?
All over, around there and all over that shopping center. They did make improvements. I noticed that they raised the speed hump height because people were parking illegally on the fire lane while they were servicing those restaurants. But where Reach is and that whole strip over right in front of that, where Uno's used to be, that's all trash over there. They manage all of that property. That's all them.
You know, a new restaurant is moving into the.
I understand, but from there to that shopping strip, there where the retention ponds are, go look at it. It's all full of trash.
All right, and that's right behind that restaurant next to it.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, would you like to say something about this?
Yes. Director Kahan, for the long-term houseboats, what is the duration when you say a long-term?
Long-term would be for anything greater than 30 days.
Okay. Up until, it can just go on?
Correct, yes, ma'am. That's why there's a limitation to only 5% of the slips to limit it so that it continues to function as a marina and not just as a housing development.
And the other question is for America's Best Wings, why do they want 24-hour?
We've tried to understand that from the applicant. They apparently do a lot of delivery and third-party deliveries, and they just have requested, we've tried to understand the manner of operation, but they believe that they have a clientele that needs the service at this hour.
All right, Mr. Page.
Are you done? Thank you. Yeah, that's my issue. We had the issue with the one over on the south side, staying open all night on their own, and the traffic that it attracted. I just want us, when these things come up, instead of just looking at the civic leagues, us as leaders, check in with the police department. Let's look at the barrier that it's gonna be when you have a place, the only place that's open all night, with people leaving places to hang out all night, congregating at those same places with the other issues we have going on in the city when we're trying to stay on top of crime. Is the tax revenue that this is gonna generate by them staying open all night gonna balance out? Is that gonna work? Because you're gonna have a place where people are congregating, there's nowhere else to go, 7-Elevens and Best Wings, and I guarantee you, everything that we had to work on to get that parking lot from being a congregating spot late in the evenings, this is gonna bring that back. I don't think we're in a place as a city where we're ready for 24-hour businesses. I think IHOP is enough if you need to eat at that time of the morning.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hahn, you may continue.
The next item is a conditional use permit renewal for the High Cup located at 117 East Princess Anne Road. This is a renewal for an existing conditional use permit for a restaurant with live entertainment and the sale of alcohol for on-premise consumption. The applicant is proposing just a renewal. They will be operating relatively the same. They are adding a innocuous form of additional entertainment and trivia, but generally speaking, they are operating the same way and just looking for a renewal of their conditional use permit. Here's the floor plan of the site. It is a site with limited capacity of only 57, with only 41 seats indoors. By a 7-0 vote, the Planning Commission does recommend approval of the renewal. During the Planning Commission public hearing, the applicant requested a removal of the limitation from reapplying for a new conditional use permit within 18 months so that they could change their entertainment options. Because this location had 2 violations of having a DJ at the location, staff recommended a 2-year expiration on the conditional use permit again for the operation, and that condition itself requires a 18-month track record in order to review the conditional use permit. The Planning Commission declined to remove the condition.
Mr. Tahan, for I'm changing my mind. Let's talk to you in private. Thank you.
Mr. Hahn, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
The next item is Coach's LLC for a conditional use permit renewal at 628 35th Street. Again, this one is also a conditional use permit renewal for an existing restaurant on 35th Street. There is a slight alteration to their seating capacity, which has dropped to 105 from 141, but because this is a renewal, the operations are the same. Here's the one of the 3 floor plans that they have, showing the main restaurant layout that also shows the location of the dance floor, understanding that this operation does close at 11 p.m. each night. By a 7-0 vote, the application is recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. The applicant has operated since 2021 without issue, and there is no change in entertainment or hours of operation of the previous approval. The next item is by the Vale Brewing Company and Only You Lounge at 2314 Colonial Avenue. This is for the continued operation of an existing nightclub and to add banquet hall and with live entertainment. There's a lot of information on this slide, I apologize. The applicant is coming in because they do have to renew their conditional use permit, but however, they are also asking to add a banquet hall with live entertainment to their uses, which means this is not a renewal, but a new conditional use permit request. The applicant is proposing to close by midnight, 7 days a week. and they do have, currently operate with DJ and live band as their forms of entertainment. The applicant is proposing to use the third floor as a banquet facility and to provide the opportunity for that banquet facility to have a DJ. The applicant can, as per conditioned in the conditional, the proposed conditions for the conditional use permit, the applicant cannot both run the lounge, the nightclub lounge along with the banquet hall at the same time. It has to be either one or the other when they're offering that DJ as live entertainment. And this is kind of small, but these are the 3 floor plans for the first, second, and third floor. The first floor is where the entertainment is for the lounge, while the banquet facility has a small occupant load with a very small area to allow for the DJ. By a 7-0 vote, the Planning Commission does recommend approval. The establishment closes by midnight, and the banquet facility, as I noted, cannot operate at the same time while they have entertainment on the first floor. They have operated without any major calls for service, and because this is a new application with a request for a banquet facility, there is a 2-year expiration proposed as one of the conditions. The last item that I'll brief the council on, you're voting on tonight, barring any objection, the adoption of the new NFK 2050 Comprehensive Plan. The comprehensive plan focuses around 4 key pillars of celebrating our community, growing equitably, embracing nature, and connecting the city, with each one of our goals of the city fitting underneath each of these. First goal is celebrating community, our first pillar. This is where there's lots of focus on neighborhoods, preservation, urban design, arts, and culture. Each of these goals help to reflect the input that we've received not only from council members, the planning commissioners, but also to the public through the 3 phases of public input that we've done. The next pillar is growing equitably. This is where we have our housing and economic development goals. Each of these goals shows a very important need to provide housing for all citizens in all age ranges, as well as all social and economic strata, and also just calls for a general increase in housing production. And then with the goals 3 and 4 focusing heavily on making sure that we grow and diversify the city of Norfolk's economy and provide for a stable and growing workforce through pipelines with our educational facilities. Next is embracing nature, which has 5 goals, which 15 years ago would have been a lot to discuss, where there was a lot of maybe disagreement on trying to assure that we preserve some of our natural ecosystems. As we've gone out to the public, there's a lot of understanding, and I believe that's a lot of the hard work of the City Council, the Planning Commission, and many of the other boards and commissions of assuring to the public that these are very important to us, not only just preserving our natural systems, but protecting the city as well as making sure that we have parks and recreation spaces that are available to all. And then lastly, we have connecting the city, which provides for our opportunities to deal with transportation and other intermodal ways to get around the city, which includes vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians, and any type of emerging technology, which we may not know yet. And so each of these provides for the opportunity to implement Vision Zero, as well as some of the other studies that we've done in order to assure that we have less conflicts and safer opportunities for the public to move around the city and to move around the region. During the October Planning Commission, the Planning Commission recommended approval by 5-0. The proposed comprehensive plan provides flexibility in appropriate areas, but also gives high-level policy through the guidance of the City Council and through the public to help continue to grow the city. With that, I'll take any questions.
Seeing no questions, Mr. Spiegel, there's one.
Fail. Yeah, you guys are comfortable with that? So they're a brewery, and they close the brewery at what time?
At
Midnight.
Yes.
So they have the brewery on the first floor, and I've been in there at the brewery with my family when it turns into a nightclub, and they have a bodyguard at the door. They've had that for a long time. And then the second and third floor turned into a nightclub. So I think they've been doing this for a while. So I'm just wondering, and it's not the most positive crowd that I've seen. Driving by there at night, I just want to make sure you guys understand. I don't know who's going to check in and make sure that they're operating with the conditions that are being put in.
I'm going to the nightclub every couple months, it's okay.
Okay.
They've been operating for the last 2 years without incident, based on our reports from the police department. And so this proposal only adds the ability to rent out the third floor. But there is still a 2-year sunset on the conditional use permit.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes, I move that members of the council assemble informally the closed meeting on December 9, 2025 at 4:58 p.m. 10th floor conference room, City Hall building in the city of Norfolk, which purposes are set out in clause 29, subsection A of section 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended. Clause 29, discussion of the award of a public contract in Ward 5 Shore Drive areas where discussion of the terms of such contract in an open session would adversely affect the negotiating strategy of the public body. Mr. Clanton. Ms. Doyle.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee. Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Spiegel. Mr. Thomas. Dr. Alexander. Very close.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.